Okay, it's been about 5 minutes now, and the water has soaked through. It actually didn't take as long as 5 minutes to do that, but we've given it plenty of chance to soak through completely. So what we have to do now is weigh these samples, and the difference in weight from the weights we recorded before gives us an idea of how much water these samples are holding. Now, it's hard to predict. You would expect the coarser sand grains to hold less water because the water is held between the sand particles, partly by the surface tension as the water coats the sand particles. Now, of course, sample 1 has big sand particles in it, so you would perhaps expect it to hold less water. That said, the bigger sand particles have bigger gaps in between them, so perhaps there is more room to hold water. So that's 332 grams. Okay, sample 2. 299 grams, and sample 3, 307 grams. So what we can do now is work out the percentages of the weight of this sand, of the dry sand before we added the water, is now taken up by the sand. So we've already done the weighings, and what we've discovered is that sample 1 is holding 29% of the dry sand weight as water now. It's actually, the weight of the sample has increased by 29%. Sample 2 is 32%, and sample 3 is 29.5%. So despite the difference in the size of the sand particles, there isn't actually that much difference in the percentage of water that is held by the sand. Now, the other thing that's of most interest here really is that the water has saturated the sand, and you cannot get that sand to hold any more water than is currently in it. That's the maximum capacity that the sand has to hold water. And that's quite important really, because the only way you can get more water into that sand is by restricting the drainage of water from the sand. And when you do that, the sand probably will start to behave quite unpredictably, but we'll do some tests on that later. What we're going to do now is add some more water to these samples, but this time we're going to stir them and see if that changes the amount of water that these samples can hold. The stirring, as I said before, is to simulate the effect of harrowing the sand having added water. That's not something that's normally done on the tracks as a rule. The water is normally poured onto the sand and just allowed to sink in gradually. So we give these samples a bit of a mix up now and see if that actually makes any difference to how much water is kept in the sand structure. Okay, we'll see you again in a few minutes' time.